They're listening, don't say a word, the beggar girl whispered to the millionaire in the car. Michael Anderson was stopped at the traffic light on Fifth Avenue when he felt the passenger door swing open abruptly. A disheveled girl in dirty clothes and tangled hair desperately climbed into his luxury car and immediately covered his mouth with her hand. They're listening, don't say a word, she whispered, her eyes wide with panic. Michael felt the world stop. Those green eyes, identical to his, were unmistakable. It was Emily, his daughter, who had disappeared 7 years ago during the bitterest legal battle of his life. The girl, now 15, discreetly pointed to the black car right behind them. Through the rearview mirror, Michael saw Jessica, his ex-wife, watching the scene with a calculated smile on her lips. The light turned green, and Michael accelerated, his hands trembling on the wheel. Emily stayed silent for several blocks, nervously glancing at the mirrors. When they finally escaped the heavy traffic, she began showing him small devices sewn into her torn clothes. "She puts these in everything I wear," Emily murmured, her voice choked. "Listens to every word I say, every place I go." Michael felt a mix of overwhelming joy at reuniting with his daughter and absolute horror at what she was revealing. All these years, he had been led to believe Emily no longer wanted to see him, that she had chosen to stay only with her mother. "Daddy, I never stopped loving you," she said, pulling a crumpled envelope from her pocket. "I found these letters of yours under Mom's mattress. You tried to see me all these years, didn't you?" Tears streamed down Michael's face as he recognized his own handwriting. Dozens of letters he had sent during the first 2 years after the separation, all returned as addressee unknown. Jessica had intercepted everything. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Emily kept whispering, explaining how she discovered the truth. The apartment where she lived with her mother had cameras in every room disguised as decorations. She had grown up believing this constant surveillance was protection, but recently began questioning why she couldn't have friends, why she couldn't go out alone, why every phone call was monitored. "Daddy, I need to tell you about the house," she said, looking back again. "It's not what it seems. Mum gets all the money you send, but we live in a horrible place. She pretends we're poor, but I've seen her bank accounts." Michael drove to a quiet square in Greenwich Village, away from the bustle. There, parked under a large tree, Emily finally spoke freely. She recounted the last 7 years of her life, a reality far different from what Michael had imagined. The girl revealed Jessica had crafted an elaborate narrative to keep her away from her father. According to her mother, Michael had remarried, had other children, and no longer cared for her. To protect Emily from rejection, Jessica kept her in near total isolation. "She showed me fake pictures, Daddy. Photos of you with other kids she downloaded from the internet. Said you had a new family and that I'd just ruin your happiness." Michael's heart shattered hearing this. He had never remarried. In truth, he had spent all these years alone, working obsessively to numb the pain of losing his only daughter. His business success had grown exponentially, but his personal life was empty. Emily then showed a small notebook she kept hidden. Inside were coded notes of everything she observed about her mother's behavior. She was far too clever for her age, having developed her own system of symbols to document the inconsistencies in Jessica's stories. "Look here, Dad," she said, opening the notebook to a specific page. "On March 15th, she said you had sent a letter saying you didn't want to see me anymore. But on the 20th, she forgot and mentioned you had asked about my grades at school. How could you ask about school if you didn't want to see me?" The forced maturity of the girl was heartbreaking. At just 15, she had developed investigative skills to survive in an environment of constant lies. Michael realized his daughter had inherited his analytical intelligence, but had been forced to use it in ways no child ever should. "There's more, Dad," Emily continued, her voice growing tenser. "Yesterday, I heard her on the phone talking about taking me to a clinic. She said I was developing mental disorders because I asked too many questions. I think she wants to send me away somewhere." Desperation gripped Michael. Jessica was planning something even more drastic to keep Emily away from him. The girl had risked everything to find him at that moment, escaping home for the first time in years. "How did you find me?" Michael asked. "I memorized your office address. Every day after school I walked past just to see if I could spot you. Today you left early, and I ran after your car. When you stopped at the traffic light, it was my only chance." The girl's courage was astonishing, but Michael knew the situation was extremely dangerous. Jessica had surely noticed Emily's disappearance by now and was likely mobilizing every possible resource to find her. They drove to the home of his mother, Grandma Margaret, a 72-year-old woman who had spent the last 7 years grieving the absence of her granddaughter. When she opened the door and saw Emily, the elderly woman broke down in tears. "My sweet girl, I knew you'd come back one day," Margaret said, hugging Emily with all the strength her aged arms could muster. Grandma's house was a museum of unrequited love. In the room that had once been Emily's, everything remained exactly as she had left it at 8 years old. There were birthday and Christmas gifts stacked year after year, undelivered cards, clothes bought with hope and never worn. "Grandma kept all this for me?" Emily asked, gently touching the wrapped presents. "Every year, my dear, every Christmas, every birthday. Your father and I never stopped believing you'd return," Margaret replied, wiping her tears. Emily discovered she had always been loved and waited for. The narrative of abandonment created by Jessica began to crumble completely when she saw the physical evidence of the love that had waited for her all those years. Michael's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Jessica was calling incessantly, sending threatening messages about kidnapping and promising serious legal consequences. But Emily had a surprise in store. "Dad, I recorded her telling the truth," she said, pulling out a small recorder she had kept hidden. "There are hours of her admitting she lies about you, calling you an ATM, saying she'll use me to get more money for the rest of her life." Michael could hardly believe what he was hearing. In the recordings, Jessica was on the phone with someone, laughing about how she had managed to keep Emily away from her father and secure an early retirement through the exorbitant child support she received. "She doesn't know I understand these things," Emily explained. "I always pretended to be more innocent than I am, but I knew someday I'd need proof." In the most shocking recording, Jessica admitted to forging documents and intercepting mail. She also revealed plans to move to another state, where it would be even harder for Michael to find Emily. When they returned to Michael's house in the late afternoon, they found the property invaded. Jessica had obtained a court order claiming Emily had been kidnapped. There were social workers, a psychologist, and even a bailiff waiting for them. "My daughter is being psychologically manipulated," Jessica screamed dramatically. "He planted false memories in her to hurt me." But Emily was prepared. With remarkable calm for her age, she showed the professionals the monitoring devices she had removed from her clothes. The social worker was visibly shocked as she examined the small equipment. "This is a very serious form of psychological abuse," murmured the social worker, Dr. Jennifer Wilson. "In 30 years of practice, I've never seen anything like this." Dr. Jennifer was an experienced professional, specializing in parental alienation cases. She immediately recognized the signs of systematic manipulation in Emily's behavior. The girl displayed classic symptoms of someone who had been psychologically controlled for years. Emily told her story with precise details, showing the notebook of records, the recordings, and explaining the surveillance system she had been subjected to. Her version was consistent, specific, and thoroughly documented, impossible to have been fabricated. "She tested me all the time," Emily explained to Dr. Jennifer. "She left spoiled food in the fridge to see if I'd complain. She lied about being sick to test if I'd be sad. Once, she fainted on purpose to see if I'd call Dad." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Dr. Jennifer grew even more concerned when she learned Emily had spent 2 years without attending a regular school, being homeschooled by a tutor hired by Jessica. According to Emily, the tutor had been instructed not to let her make friends or interact with other children. "Mom said other kids were dangerous, that they could turn me against her," Emily shared. "I could only talk to adults she approved of, and only when she was present." Jessica tried to counterattack, claiming Emily was suffering from false memory syndrome and that Michael had used manipulation techniques during the few hours they spent together. She brought in a private psychologist who, without even properly examining Emily, declared the girl was clearly confused and needed to be protected from outside influences. But the physical evidence was undeniable. The surveillance devices, the recordings, the notebook filled with years of notes, all of it revealed a pattern of obsessive control that went far beyond what any child could invent. Dr. Jennifer requested a deeper investigation. In the following days, neighbors from Jessica's building began giving voluntary statements. Many confirmed they had never seen Emily playing or talking with other children. Some reported hearing frequent screams and arguments from the apartment. Mrs. Eleanor, an elderly neighbor from the floor above, shared disturbing information. She revealed that she had often offered to watch Emily when Jessica needed to go out, but was always met with aggressive refusals. "That woman wouldn't let the girl breathe," Mrs. Eleanor told Dr. Jennifer. "Once, the child was on the balcony and waved at me. The next day, bars were installed on the balcony, as if she were a prisoner." Other neighbors confirmed that Emily always seemed frightened and quiet. One resident reported seeing Jessica regularly rummaging through Emily's trash, apparently searching for anything the girl might have hidden. The investigation also revealed glaring financial irregularities. Jessica was receiving a monthly child support payment of $15,000, claiming she needed the money for Emily's expenses and to maintain an adequate standard of living for the girl. However, they lived in a small, poorly maintained apartment. Emily wore old clothes and medical reports indicated nutritional deficiencies. A forensic accountant discovered that Jessica had diverted most of the child support to personal accounts. She maintained a luxurious apartment in another neighborhood, registered under a fictitious company name, where she lived on weekends, leaving Emily alone. "She told me she was traveling to visit her sick grandmother," Emily revealed. "But I found out her grandmother passed away 3 years ago. She even lied about that." With each revelation, the case grew more complex and disturbing. Jessica had built an elaborate web of lies that extended far beyond parental alienation. She had created a completely false persona of a devoted, impoverished mother, while systematically manipulating her own daughter and defrauding the judicial system. Emily underwent several independent psychological evaluations. All professionals reached the same conclusion. She showed clear signs of psychological trauma, consistent with years of emotional manipulation, but had no mental disorder justifying hospitalization. Dr. Robert Thompson, a renowned child psychiatrist, prepared a devastating report on Emily's mental state. According to him, the girl had developed extremely sophisticated psychological survival mechanisms to cope with a toxic environment. Emily demonstrates exceptionally developed emotional intelligence, but also symptoms of post-traumatic stress related to forced isolation and systematic psychological manipulation, Dr. Thompson wrote in his report. The psychiatrist also noted that Emily had internalized the belief that she was unworthy of love, a typical pattern in children subjected to prolonged emotional abuse. She displayed constant hypervigilance, always checking if she was doing something wrong that might displease the adults around her. During one therapy session, Emily revealed something that deeply concerned Dr. Thompson. She had begun having recurring nightmares about being taken to a place where she would never see her father or grandmother again. "In my dreams, Mommy takes me to a white hospital where everyone wears white clothes. She tells the doctors I'm crazy, and they give me medicine that makes me forget everything," Emily said, trembling. These nightmares were not products of a child's imagination. Dr. Thompson discovered that Jessica had indeed consulted several psychiatric clinics about the possibility of committing Emily for severe behavioral disorders. She had submitted falsified reports about supposed violent episodes involving the girl. The investigation revealed that Jessica had paid a substantial sum to an unscrupulous psychologist to prepare a fake report diagnosing Emily with antisocial personality disorder and dangerous aggressive tendencies. This report would have been used to justify involuntary commitment. Michael was horrified to discover how close his daughter had come to disappearing from his life completely. If Emily hadn't found the courage to approach him that day at the traffic light, she could have been committed to a psychiatric facility and he might never have seen her again. The first court hearing was extremely tense. Jessica had hired a team of lawyers specialized in manipulating the legal system. They tried to disqualify all the evidence presented by Michael, claiming the surveillance devices were normal security equipment and that the recordings had been maliciously edited. But Michael's defense had prepared meticulously. Attorney Stephanie Miller, a family law expert, presented a detailed timeline of the last 7 years, demonstrating the systematic pattern of parental alienation practiced by Jessica. Stephanie had gathered witnesses, documents, medical reports, and even technical analysis of the surveillance devices. The most striking evidence was a security video from the building where Jessica lived, showing Emily being physically prevented from leaving the apartment alone. "Your Honor, we have here a severe case of unlawful imprisonment, disguised as maternal protection," argued Stephanie. "This child was held prisoner in her own home for 7 years, deprived of the fundamental right to have a relationship with her father." Jessica's lawyer tried to argue that all measures were necessary to protect Emily from her father's negative influence. He presented biased psychological reports and even claimed Michael had used his financial influence to buy witnesses and falsify evidence. But Jessica's credibility began to crumble when the prosecutor presented evidence of financial fraud. Secret bank accounts, a luxury apartment, exorbitant spending on beauty products and trips, all while claiming to live in poverty and needing more child support. Judge William Harris, an experienced magistrate known for his impartiality in family cases, was visibly disturbed by the evidence. During the hearing, he asked Emily direct questions, and she answered with striking clarity and consistency. "Emily, can you explain why your mother placed these devices in your clothes?" the judge asked gently. "She said it was to protect me, but I realized it was to control me," Emily replied with a maturity that moved everyone present. "When I found the devices, I understood it wasn't protection, it was imprisonment." The judge also questioned her about the intercepted letters and recordings. Emily methodically explained how she had uncovered each lie, demonstrating an analytical ability that made it clear her accusations weren't fabricated or implanted by others. Jessica, on the other hand, showed clear signs of emotional instability during questioning. Her answers were contradictory, and she couldn't satisfactorily explain the physical evidence against her. "This is all a conspiracy by my ex-husband," Jessica shouted at one point. "He has enough money to buy anyone, even judges." This inappropriate emotional outburst, combined with the solid documentary evidence, sealed the case's fate. The judge ruled for an immediate protective order, transferring temporary custody of Emily to Michael and establishing supervised visits for Jessica. But Jessica didn't accept defeat easily. She hired a new legal team and launched a smear campaign on social media against Michael, creating fake profiles to spread lies about him being an abusive father who had bought the justice system. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Stephanie had to file multiple defamation lawsuits to protect Michael's reputation. Jessica's strategy was clear. If she couldn't have Emily, she would do everything to destroy her ex-husband's life. During this turbulent period, Emily remained steadfast in her testimony. Even under intense psychological pressure, she never changed her version of events. Specialized psychologists confirmed it would be impossible for a child to maintain such an elaborate lie under so much scrutiny. The investigation deepened further when Emily's maternal grandmother, Mrs. Patricia, unexpectedly appeared in Stephanie's office. The 68-year-old woman carried a heavy burden of guilt and decided to break her silence. "I can't stay quiet anymore," said Mrs. Patricia, tears in her eyes. "My daughter is sick, and I was complicit in the suffering of this innocent child." Mrs. Patricia revealed that Jessica had displayed obsessive and controlling behaviors since adolescence. She recounted similar episodes in the past, when Jessica had tried to completely dominate the lives of boyfriends and friends. "When she was younger, she did the same thing," explained Mrs. Patricia. "She isolated people from their families, created lies to make herself indispensable. I thought marriage would change her, but it only made things worse." The maternal grandmother also brought medical documents that further complicated Jessica's situation. There were records of psychiatric treatments she had hidden throughout the legal proceedings. Diagnoses of borderline personality disorder and narcissistic tendencies were documented in medical records spanning several years. "Why didn't you speak up sooner?" asked Stephanie. "Because she threatened me," replied Mrs. Patricia, trembling. "She said if I said anything I'd never see my granddaughter again, and after she cut me off from Emily anyway, I realized I'd been deceived." Mrs. Patricia revealed that she too had been a victim of Jessica's manipulation. Over the past few years, her daughter had gradually severed all contact between her and Emily, claiming the grandmother was negatively interfering with the girl's upbringing. In truth, Jessica had noticed Mrs. Patricia was beginning to question her extreme control tactics. The grandmother had repeatedly suggested Emily needed more freedom and social interaction, which completely contradicted Jessica's plans. The most shocking revelation came when Mrs. Patricia showed emails she had exchanged with Jessica. In them, her daughter openly admitted to using Emily as financial leverage and as a way to punish Michael for ending their marriage. "She wrote to me that Michael had to pay for the rest of his life for daring to divorce her," Mrs. Patricia read from one email, "and that Emily was the perfect tool for it." These emails were included as evidence in the case, further strengthening Michael's position. They demonstrated premeditation and a clear intent to use the child as an instrument of revenge. During one of the supervised visits between Jessica and Emily, the girl displayed behavior that alarmed all the professionals present. In her mother's presence, she became a completely different child, tense, withdrawn, and clearly terrified. Dr. Jennifer observed that Emily developed physical signs of stress whenever she knew she would see her mother. Headaches, stomach issues, and even panic episodes preceded each supervised meeting. "It's impossible to force a child to maintain contact with someone who causes them so much psychological distress," concluded Dr. Jennifer in her report. "The supervised visits, even with all possible protections, are traumatic for Emily." Jessica reacted explosively when she learned the visits might be suspended. She accused all the professionals involved of being bought by Michael and threatened to sue everyone for conspiracy against a loving mother. But her threats lost credibility when records of psychiatric hospitalizations she had hidden came to light. Jessica had been hospitalized 3 times in the past 5 years for psychotic episodes related to her obsessive behavior. The psychiatrist who had treated her, Dr. Richard Brown, was authorized by the judge to break medical confidentiality due to the severity of the case. He revealed that Jessica had developed an unhealthy obsession with control and showed a severe disconnect from reality regarding her daughter's well-being. The patient displayed a complete inability to understand that her behaviors were harmful to the child, testified Dr. Brown. In her distorted mind, she genuinely believed she was protecting her daughter when, in reality, she was causing serious psychological harm. As the legal battle continued, Michael and Emily worked to rebuild the relationship that had been stolen from them. It wasn't easy. 7 years of separation and manipulation had left deep scars on both. Emily had grown up believing she was an unwanted burden, that her presence in anyone's life caused problems. Michael needed immense patience to help her understand she had always been loved and wanted. The first few weeks were especially hard. Emily would wake up in the middle of the night from nightmares, constantly check if she wasn't bothering anyone too much, and apologize for anything that could be interpreted as a mistake. "Dad, are you sure you don't regret having me back?" she would ask almost daily. "Emily, my dear, you are the most important thing in my life," Michael would always respond, hugging her with all the love he had stored during those empty years. Grandma Margaret became a crucial presence in this healing process. The paternal grandmother had the infinite patience that only unconditional love can provide. She taught Emily how to make family recipes, shared stories of Michael's childhood, and helped the girl understand she had always had a family who loved her. "Grandma, why did Mom say you didn't like me?" Emily asked one afternoon as they made brigadeiros together. "My sweet girl, some people get so lost in their own troubles that they can't see the love around them," Margaret replied wisely. "Your mother is sick, and when people are sick like that, they do things that hurt the ones they love the most." This simple, compassionate explanation helped Emily begin to process the trauma without developing hatred for her mother. It was important for her mental health to understand she had been the victim of an illness, not pure malice. Michael enrolled Emily in a prestigious private school, but social adaptation was another immense challenge. The girl had spent years without normal interaction with children her age. She didn't know how to play in groups, make friends, or handle normal teenage conflicts. The school psychologist, Dr. Amanda Parker, worked intensively with Emily to develop her social skills. At first, the girl would isolate herself during breaks, watching other students as if they were creatures from another planet. "It's like she's learning how to be a child at 15, observed Dr. Parker. She knows a lot about adults and their manipulations, but nothing about the natural innocence of childhood. Gradually, Emily began making friends. Her exceptional intelligence and premature maturity made her stand out academically, but she had to learn to be more spontaneous and trust people. Olivia, an outgoing and warm classmate, became Emily's first true friend. It was through this friendship that Emily began to understand how healthy relationships work. "It's strange not having to hide anything from you," Emily said to Olivia after a few months of friendship. "I always had to be careful with every word I said." Olivia, with the typical simplicity of adolescence, replied, "Wow, what a boring life. Friends exist so we can say silly things without worrying." That simple phrase was a revelation for Emily. She began to understand that true relationships are built on mutual acceptance, not control or fear. Michael Anderson also went through his own healing process. During the years of separation, he had become a workaholic as a way to cope with the pain. Now he needed to relearn how to balance work and personal life, prioritizing quality time with his daughter. They established small daily rituals: breakfast together, homework in the afternoon, bedtime conversations. These simple moments were precious to both of them, slowly rebuilding the intimacy between father and daughter. "Daddy, do you remember how much I loved hot chocolate?" Emily asked on a cold night. "Of course I remember," Michael replied, his heart tightening. "You liked it with lots of marshmallows and always had a foam mustache afterward. Can you make me one like you used to?" These moments of reconnection were simultaneously painful and wonderful. Painful because they reminded them of everything that had been lost, but wonderful because they represented the possibility of rebuilding what had been destroyed. The legal process reached its final stage after 2 intense years of battle. All the evidence had been examined, all the witnesses heard, all the expert reports reviewed. The truth was clear to everyone involved. Jessica had completely lost credibility. Her lies had been exposed one by one, her abusive behaviors extensively documented, her mental instability confirmed by multiple professionals. At the final hearing, Judge William Harris delivered a ruling that would go down in the history of U.S. family law. He granted full custody of Emily to Michael, ordered Jessica to undergo mandatory psychiatric treatment, and ruled that visitation could only resume after significant improvement in her mental state was proven. This case represents one of the most severe examples of parental alienation to ever come before this court, the judge declared. The systematic manipulation of a child for personal revenge is a crime against humanity, regardless of the family ties involved. The ruling also required Jessica to return all the misused child support money and pay compensation for emotional damages to both Michael and Emily. The amount, though significant, could never make up for the years of suffering they had endured. Jessica still tried to appeal the decision, but the higher courts unanimously upheld the ruling. There were no legal avenues left for her. The truth had finally prevailed. But real healing took much longer than the legal victory. Emily continued therapy for years, working to overcome the traumas of her manipulated childhood. She developed a passion for studying psychology, fascinated by understanding how human minds can be both creative and destructive. Michael also underwent therapy, dealing with the guilt of not being able to protect his daughter during those terrible years. He had to learn to forgive himself and understand that he had been a victim of manipulation just as much as Emily. "Dad, it wasn't your fault," Emily told him during one of their family therapy sessions. "You fought for me the only way you knew how. Deep in my heart, I always knew you loved me." Grandma Margaret became the emotional pillar of the rebuilt family. Her wisdom and unconditional love helped both Michael and Emily find peace with the past and hope for the future. Over time, even Mrs. Patricia became part of Emily's life again. Her maternal grandmother had gone through her own process of reflection and remorse and genuinely wanted to help repair the damage caused by her daughter. "Grandma Patricia, I'm not angry with you," Emily said during one of their visits. "You were also deceived by Mom. What matters is that we're all together now, trying to do the right thing." Emily's generosity of spirit amazed everyone. Despite all the suffering she had endured, she carried no bitterness or desire for revenge. Her ability to forgive and move forward was a testament to the inner strength she had developed during those difficult years. Emily excelled academically and socially in school. Her unique experience made her exceptionally empathetic, able to recognize and help classmates going through family struggles. She volunteered with organizations supporting children affected by psychological abuse, sharing her story to help others find the courage to seek help. "My story isn't unique," she often said in her talks. "There are many children trapped in similar situations, thinking it's normal to be controlled and manipulated. I want them to know a better life is waiting for them." Michael was immensely proud of the strong, compassionate woman his daughter was becoming. He knew the lost years could never be reclaimed, but every day they spent together was a blessing he never took for granted. They traveled to places Emily had never seen, tried activities she had been denied, and built new memories to replace the painful ones. Every shared experience was a victory over their dark past. The bond between father and daughter grew exceptionally close. They had weathered a storm that would have destroyed many families, but emerged stronger than ever. Adversity had fortified them in ways a normal childhood might never have. Emily decided to study law in college, specializing in children's rights and parental alienation. She wanted to use her personal experience to help other families facing similar struggles. "Dad, I want to be the voice I wish I'd had when I was trapped," she explained when choosing her career. "I want to help other children find their way home." During college, Emily wrote her thesis on parental alienation, strategies for early identification and intervention. The work was so impressive, it was published in a specialized legal journal and cited in several subsequent court rulings. Michael expanded his business and founded an organization dedicated to supporting families battling parental alienation. The foundation offered free legal aid, psychological therapy, and even financial support for cases where limited resources prevented parents from seeking justice. "Our experience can't have been in vain," Michael said at the launch. "If we can spare even one family from going through what we did, all the suffering will have been worth it." Jessica eventually accepted psychiatric treatment and began a long recovery process. Though the harm she caused could never be fully undone, she finally began to grasp the gravity of her actions. After 4 years of intensive therapy, she wrote Emily a letter asking for forgiveness. It was delivered through their lawyers, respecting the space Emily needed to decide about any future contact. "My dear daughter," the letter read, "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness after all I've done. I'm writing not to try to re-enter your life, but so you'll know I finally understand how wrong I was. You deserve all the happiness in the world, and I'm genuinely happy to hear you found your way back to your father and your family. Your success and strength prove that true love always wins, even when all seems lost." Emily read the letter several times before making a decision. After much reflection and conversations with Michael and her therapists, she decided to write a response. "Mom," Emily wrote, "I accept your apology and hope you continue healing. I don't know if we'll ever be ready to meet again, but I don't hold anger toward you. I've learned that carrying hatred only hurts the one who carries it. I hope you find peace and never hurt anyone the way you hurt me. Maybe one day we can have a real conversation when you're fully healed and I'm ready. Until then, I wish you happiness and health." This exchange of letters marked an important moment in Emily's healing journey. She had found a way to forgive without forgetting, to move forward without denying the past. Years passed, and Emily graduated from law school with highest honors. At the graduation ceremony, Michael sat in the front row with Grandma Margaret, both with tears of pride in their eyes. When I was 15, sitting in that car, begging you to stay silent, I never imagined I'd be here today. Graduated and ready to give voice to those who have none, Emily said in her valedictorian speech. I've learned that secrets can imprison us, but the truth always sets us free. I've learned that true love doesn't control, it trusts. And I've learned that even in the darkest moments, there's always a light waiting to guide us home. Emily opened her own law firm specializing in family law, with a particular focus on parental alienation cases. She became one of the most respected attorneys in the field, known for both her technical expertise and her deep empathy. In every case she took on, she saw a piece of her own story. Her personal experience made her a tireless advocate for children's rights and a brilliant strategist against skilled manipulators. "Ms. Emily," a client once said during a consultation, "you understand my daughter in a way no other lawyer has. How do you know exactly what she's feeling?" "Because I've been in her place," Emily replied simply. "I know the fear, the confusion, the feeling that there's no way out, but I also know the path back to the light." Michael remained the present father he had always dreamed of being. They kept their daily rituals even after Emily became an independent adult. Sunday breakfast at Grandma Margaret's became a sacred tradition that nothing could interrupt. "Dad, thank you for never giving up on me," Emily said on her 25th birthday. "Even when I was just a frightened child in that car, begging for silence, you knew there was hope." "My dear, you were always my hope," Michael replied. "That day at the traffic light wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning of our new life." The foundation Michael created grew into a national leader in combating parental alienation. Hundreds of families were reunited thanks to the organization's work, and Emily often provided pro bono consultations for especially complex cases. At 30, Emily married Nathan, a child psychologist she met during a seminar on childhood trauma. Their wedding was a celebration of genuine love and healthy communication, everything that had been missing in Emily's childhood. "Nathan," Emily said the night before the wedding, "are you sure you want to marry someone with so much emotional baggage?" "Emily," he replied, holding her hands, "your baggage is actually your strength. You went through the worst a child could endure and came out stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. It's exactly this incredible woman I want by my side forever." At the wedding, Michael Anderson gave a speech that left no dry eyes in the room. "My daughter Emily taught me that true love always finds a way. For 7 years I thought I'd lost her forever, but she was braver than any adult I've ever known. At 15, she risked everything to come home. Today, at 30, she's still the bravest person I know. Nathan, you're not just gaining a wonderful wife, but a family that understands the value of fighting for what truly matters." When Emily and Nathan had their first child, a girl they named Margaret after her great-grandmother, Emily felt a unique mix of joy and reflection. Holding her baby in her arms, she thought of all the childhood moments she'd lost and promised her daughter would never know the fear she had felt. "You'll grow up knowing you're loved unconditionally," she whispered to little Margaret. "You'll have friends. You'll speak your mind and you'll know your voice matters. And you'll always know the way home." Michael became a devoted grandfather, making up with his granddaughter all the time he'd lost with his daughter. Seeing Emily as a mother filled him with indescribable pride. She had broken the cycle of abuse and created an environment of pure, healthy love for her own family. Years later, when little Margaret was 5, she asked Emily about her childhood. "Mommy, what was it like when you were little?" "It was complicated, sweetheart," Emily answered honestly. "There was a time when I couldn't see Grandpa Michael. But the important thing is that love always finds a way, and in the end we were all together." "And now?" Margaret asked. "Now we're a happy family, and you'll always know you're loved no matter what," Emily said, hugging her daughter. Emily's story became a case study in law and psychology programs across the United States. Her autobiographical book, The Silence That Frees: My Journey from Manipulation to Liberation, became a bestseller and helped thousands recognize signs of parental alienation. In interviews, Emily always emphasized that her story wasn't about revenge or hatred, but about the power of true love and the importance of never giving up on the truth. That moment in the car, when I asked my father not to speak, was paradoxically when I began to find my voice, she reflected. Sometimes you have to ask for silence to hear your true self. Jessica, after years of therapy, gradually rebuilt a limited but respectful relationship with Emily. They never regained the closeness of mother and daughter, but found a way to coexist with dignity. In one of their rare conversations, Jessica told Emily, "I stole your childhood, but you built a beautiful life in spite of me. That proves you're stronger than I ever was." "Mum, you were sick," Emily replied with compassion. "What matters is that you healed and will never hurt anyone like that again." Michael lived to see his daughter become one of the most respected lawyers in the country, an exemplary mother and a tireless advocate for children's rights. The man who once thought he'd lost everything had, in truth, gained far more than he ever imagined possible. "Emily," he said on his 70th birthday, "you know that day at the traffic light was the best day of my life, right?" "Why, Dad?" "Because it was the day my daughter decided to fight for our family. It was the day you taught me that sometimes we need to ask for silence so the truth can finally be heard." Little Margaret grew up hearing these stories, understanding early on the value of courage, honesty, and unconditional love. She was proud to have a mother who had turned her suffering into strength to help others. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story of love, courage, and resilience. Emily managed to turn years of suffering into a life mission to help other families. Do you also have stories of overcoming challenges to share? Leave your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.